A new OnePlus device brings some new material to some internals that you might already be kind of familiar with, but it's really the price you gotta hear. It's Joshua Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And here is your first look at the OnePlus X. OnePlus is bringing a device that looks very different from any ones that they've made in the past. Dual glass panels are held together by a metal frame that feels incredibly sturdy. Actually, even though this is a somewhat smaller device than many of the ones we have in the market today, it actually feels heavier than all of them. You have the Onyx version that has black glass on both sides, and the handling on that is quite easy, especially when you have the flat metal sides along with the somewhat smaller 5-inch 1080p display. But there's actually another version of this phone that is made of a fire-baked ceramic on the back. Now, this material is kind of hard to create, as OnePlus told us, and thus this phone will come in limited quantities and at a higher price. But you can already see the difference between these two devices, as the Onyx simply has the two glass panels and the ceramic adds a bit of a chamfered edge onto all parts of the back. Going around the sides, we do have all of the buttons on the right side, really easy to reach, but opposite that is the returning alert slider. Now, the alert slider returns from the OnePlus 2 and is an easy way of changing what kind of notifications you get on the device, either all priority or none. Now, returning also from the OnePlus 2 is the ability to put in dual SIMs on this phone. But what's great about this particular device is that one of those trays will be able to house a micro SD card slot. Yes, you will be able to expand the storage in here, and that is a big feature that the OnePlus X is able to tout. Overall, we're really happy with the craftsmanship on this device already. Even though it does seem like a little bit smaller of a device, it actually feels heavier overall, and the dual glass panels give it a very good black slate design that you may not be able to customize per se, but a bunch of different cases will be available for you to change the look of it. Personally, though, I'm not a big fan of the cases because they look out of place when you look at just how elegant this phone is. That said, however, it is a very fingerprint-prone device. We had to wipe the device off plenty of times during this shoot, and that's something that you're probably just going to have to expect when it comes to a glass design in the OnePlus X. We already alluded to this display being of 1080p resolution, but it's also of an AMOLED construction. Now, we'll always think that that's a pretty good choice, but here in the OnePlus X, it gets an added benefit because Oxygen OS now supports the Ambient Display, one of the features from earlier versions of Android that allows you a quick look at your notifications, and you can actually wave your hand over the device in order to trigger it. Underneath the surface, we have a pretty familiar processing package, the Snapdragon 801, which returns, and as OnePlus said, they did a lot of testing on the Snapdragon 801 and found that not only is it still reliable, it is actually still a bit faster than the more recent Snapdragon 617. It's backed by the Adreno 330 and 3GB of RAM, which is going to help with multitasking across the board. A 25 mAh battery, which with the 5-inch display and the Snapdragon 801 might be able to go for quite some time, but we'll have to wait for our full review to test that out. Now, when we move on to the camera, there are a couple of changes here, as well as the camera comes with 13 megapixels in the rear and 8 megapixels in the front, which should do pretty well for the selfies. The camera app itself, however, is really similar to the OnePlus 2 in that you can swipe among the different modes in the viewfinder in order to change it, and there aren't really that many manual controls on it, at least not for the moment. And finally, in software, we have the Oxygen OS, returning from the OnePlus 2 with many of the different features that it had, but it still looks very stock-like in nature and is pretty easy to use, especially on this 5-inch display. The shelf is there, but it is off by default. The dark mode returns and is the default on here, so you can see everything pretty easily, especially in darker situations, so you're not really putting too much strong light into your eyes. And then we already mentioned the Ambient Display. But there is also an FM radio in this device, so if you want to listen to something a little bit more local in the airwaves, then you certainly can. And from there, Oxygen OS still has plenty of the different gestures. The app permissions also do return and are OnePlus's flavor of that. But it's really a software suite that manages to bring some marshmallow features without truly being marshmallow, but that update will be coming at some point later on. And that should do it for the look at the OnePlus X. The OnePlus One is still one of our favorite devices, and we're happy to see that kind of experience get slightly updated and put into an even better looking body, even more accessible even with the smaller display. And a couple of features are added in, like the alert slider and of course the expandable storage, which we are always really happy about. But what really makes us happy about this device is the price at $249. This might be one of the easiest entry points into the world of Android, and it should be pretty high quality as well. The ceramic version will only be available for a higher price in Europe, but those invites will be going out as well shortly after the release of the original Onyx version of the OnePlus X. As far as the invite system goes, there are going to be pure invites for the first month of the release, but gradually over time there will be open sales times that slowly get bigger until the OnePlus X will be made fully in open sale market. So keep it tuned to Android Authority for that and even more. Stick around for your invites, and then you'll be able to see if this phone is the one that you should be getting when we give you our full review very soon. So keep it tuned to Android Authority for that and even more, because we are your source for all things Android.